Hello you guys and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be working on a Halloween set that I found on Pinterest or Instagram. I'm not even sure where I found it, but anyway, this is the picture here. And I'm trying to start working more on nail art as far as like drawing characters and things like that, because I don't do it often, but I really want to learn, and the only way to learn is to keep practicing. So that's what I'm doing here. Alright you guys, so for the sake of Halloween and this being a Halloween set, I'm going to be reading you 12 terrifying Halloween stories. Now, are they really terrifying? I don't know, because I have not read them. We will be reading / listening together. So sit back, get you some popcorn, get you a drink, and let's get started. The first story is called The Cell Phone. A couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day at work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with the text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand and inspected. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes, such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. Okay, so what did y'all think about that one? I mean, it's a little creepy. In my opinion, they could have had the cell phone, the house, they could have had the whole thing, and it would just been the end of the story. But let me know what you guys think down below. Now we're going to move on to the next story. It's called Ghost Bro. My house was built in 1904. It is a single-family home, wood frame setting on a concrete block foundation. I have been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and me have seen or heard in this house, this one event is my favorite. This happened to my brother about 10 years ago. My brother and his best friends had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice into the early evening, and they would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were getting shorter. They had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement, but the tricky part was they needed to walk all the way to the back of the basement, up the back stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall, into the living room, and out into the front porch. Everyone was outside, sitting in my brother's truck, waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on the speaker in the basement. He made the decision to go back. Now, the basement is not clean. With full sight lines, there had been partitions made, and the boiler and the main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So after my brother walks back, he is about to retrieve his food container when out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It is a shadowy figure, right in his peripheral vision. This feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over my brother. We had been taught that if you are in the presence of a spirit or ghost and you felt a bad vibe, you say a quick prayer or you cuss at it. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it, "Hey, F you. I don't have time for this." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing the doors and turning off the lights as he was walking out. The last light switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last switch, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him. Still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard, but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between himself and his friend, he kind of smiled and thought things over in his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting on his seatbelt, and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house when one of his friends asked, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" His brother answered, "What do you mean?" "He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked, "So then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" The Rocking Horse. One night when I was maybe 10 or 12, I had trouble falling asleep. My bedroom was the entire top floor of our house, with my bed and such being on the left side and storage closets and a play area on the right. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room and see a rocking horse begin to rock. It was sitting just outside one of the storage closets. It proceeded to rock its way halfway across the room and stopped dead under the ceiling light. At this point, I was freaking out and I just buried my head under my blankets and never peeked out again until morning. It was all confirmed to not be a dream, as the rocking horse was still in the middle of my room when I woke up. Furthermore, I got a stern reprimand from my parents for being up out of the bed playing with my toys well past my bedtime. Their bedroom was directly below the storage closet play area and had heard the creaking of the rocking horse shuffling across the floor. See, the only question that I have about that story is, why was she able to go to sleep after all of that happened? I mean, like, if a rocking horse made its way halfway across my bedroom, like, I'm not going to sleep. Matter of fact, I'm not going to even be in the room. Like, I don't know. People set up different. I guess I'm just a runner, because I would have got on out real quick. But drop a comment. Let me know what you guys would have done. This next story is called The Whispers. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swore to my mother I heard voices in it. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when my mom asked. She figured they were just bumps in the night and typical kid nightmare material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that, that they sounded different from one another, like people's voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside her bedroom door for my late night tinkles. I should add at this point that when walking out into the hall to go to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that will lead you into my living room on the first floor. On one such night around Christmas, I awoke and felt the need to relieve myself. I walked from the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look," and to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the hallway at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid, and it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what this light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into the house to know that I was being a good boy? I was so excited, I began walking down the stairs to greet him, picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness in my living room. That's when I heard him say, a very strong, masculine voice, different from the first, not at all like my father's. It said, "Stop, right now. Go back up those stairs." I listened, turned around, and what happened next I am not sure I would believe if anyone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we awoke the next morning, the poinsettia lights my mother had put on the railings down the stairs were pulled down all the way to the bottom of the stairs, some broken from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been the victims of a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broken in. There did not seem to be any reason this had happened. And then I saw it, and I kept quiet about it because I was so afraid that I could not first force words out of my mouth. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were three indentations where the finish of the wood had been worn, almost as if a forceful grip, something down there, had grabbed it and threw it down. That was what the Big Bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I do not like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night, if it was anything at all. But I can tell you that the reality was that something had physically acted upon two things in my house near the bottom of that stairwell. After this, I had never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank the man that had stopped me from going down those stairs. This happened when I was 7. I'm 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I'm still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells. Okay, so that one was a little bit more creepy. But I don't know about y'all, but I have no idea what a dry sink is. So if some of you guys don't know either, I'm going to insert a picture because I had to go Google it. I ain't even going to lie. And this is what a dry sink is. Obviously, I've seen one before. Didn't know what they were called. Didn't know that people put them on walls, but apparently they do. But can you imagine, like, going downstairs the next morning and seeing this thing pulled off a wall with, like, indentions where somebody's hand was? Like, that had to be creepy. Like, no, absolutely not. What you guys think about that one? Leave me a comment below. Let me know. And we're going to move on to the next story, which is called The Crib Shadow. I was babysitting my niece once while I was staying at my brother's place, and they had the baby monitor set up so I could see her on the little TV camera that it came with. I was studying and I started dozing off when I heard some whispering and realized it was coming from the monitor. I initially thought it was some feedback or something, but when I looked at the TV, there was a dark shadow near my niece's crib. I have never been more terrified in my life, but the shadow was clearly there where it had not been before. I ran to my niece's room and looked around and saw nothing, but I took her the hell out of there. I went back to the TV and the shadow was clearly gone. I told my brother what happened and he pulled me aside and told me not to mention it to my sister-in-law because she'll freak out, but that he had seen the same thing several times now with the same whispering. They stayed in the house for about 4 more years, and when my niece was just learning to talk, she would tell her mom about her special friend. To this day, it scares the out of me. When they moved out, my brother told me my niece had become inconsolably sad because she would miss her friend. Her mom would tell her she could just bring him along, but all she would say is that he couldn't leave the house. We have never to this day told her about the dang shadow, and she apparently never saw it. Okay, so I'm just gonna say for the record, if there was a ghost just chilling out in my baby crib every night and I saw it on the monitor, probably not gonna keep putting my kid in that room. Like, I don't know how many of y'all are parents, but for me, that's like a no. And they moved out how many years later? Like 4 years later? It would have been like 4 minutes for me. Enough for me to grab my car keys, my kids, and get out of there. Y'all already know by now? Drop a comment. Let me know what y'all think about this one. This next story is called The Shadow. I didn't know that's what it was called until much later. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it had been a speakeasy, a brothel, and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of tea and cool off, and I was alone in the house. The way the place was built was incredibly hazardous. There was a bedroom and a living room on one side, and a bathroom and two entrances. On the other side of the bathroom was a hallway that had windows on one side and two bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall into the bathroom, then through the bathroom and down to the other hall. I was standing at my dresser and I just noticed movement out of the corner of my eye, and I looked down there. There was, and honest to God, this gives me goosebumps just typing it. 17 years later, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall and it was only vaguely humanoid. It looked like black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribbles moved, like electricity arcing. That's the best way I can describe it. There was no sound that I can remember. I distinctly remember when I saw it, I wasn't afraid, just like WTF. Then it noticed me, looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me, I guess. Then I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, nothing. I just froze because it just came at me. It rushed down the hall towards me. I had no idea what it intended, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed shut. I screamed, I yelled for my wife. She wasn't home. I went outside into the daylight and didn't go back until she got home about 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe I saw something supernatural, but I know I saw something. I don't know what it was. Alright, you guys, so that was the last of the stories that I have for you today. I hope it didn't creep you out too much. It's a little stormy and thundering over here, so I got a little extra creep factor on my side. But this is what the nails are looking like. I think they turn out pretty good. Let me know what you guys think. Leave me a comment below. Give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.